Good
Okay.
morning, everyone. My name is Artis Bartle. I am with PMCD Division. My cohorts today are JD Glenn, Dapo, and Sherry Laban, who is at a trade show today. So we are not lucky enough to have her with us. Today, guys, we are very, very fortunate. We have the third part to our PMCD series about loop tuning, and we're very lucky to have Maxim LaChance back at this time. I'm going to go to the next slide, Maxim, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I want to remind everyone that this is an ISA on point. On points are different than ISA Connect. On points are recorded. So the first part of this will be a presentation by Maxime. He will take questions, but I would advise you to put your questions in your chat so you won't forget them. And then there will be a time when we'll stop the presentation and start taking questions. Again, I want to remind everyone this is recorded and will be put on the ISA website. So please feel free to put your questions in there, but be aware that we are recording this. I'm going to kindly ask everyone right now to mute yourself. And if you do not mute yourself, I will happily mute you for you in a few minutes from there. Are there any questions before I turn it over to Maxime? Maxime, I think we're ready for you. I think you're going to go to the next slide. Thank you, Maxime.
Thank you, Artis. So hi, I'm Maxime LaChance. I'm a process control engineer. I do consulting work for BBA, and I've been doing process control for over 20 years right now. Today, what we'll do is we'll, as Artis mentioned, we had previous sessions before. So I will just do a quick overview of the last presentation. It was about self-regulating process. And today we'll look about integrating processes, which is a different way of tuning them. We'll see how we will do a kind of a model adaptation to be able to do tuning. So we'll show you tuning methodology, and we'll spend some times in a simulation and play with the tuning and see what the types of response that we will have with this. So previously, what I was presenting was how to tune a self-regulating model, so processes, I mean. So a self-regulating process is like, let's say, a flow. You increase the pump speed and you get a new flow. So this is the type of response you would get. So here down, you have your controller output. So if I increase the speed of my pump, my process value, which could be my flow in this case, we'll have a short dead time, then we'll start recording the change and we'll be stable. So we go from a stable position to another stable. So it's called self-regulating because it will self-regulate it. So I invite you to see the recording if you want to know a bit more about that. But basically, we did what we call a first model identification. We need the dead time, the time constant, the process gain. And with those, with this model, we were able to decide the type of response to a set point change or a load change based on the tuning. So if you go with aggressive tuning, you would have a response in a red like this with an overshoot, and then we'll stabilize. If you choose moderate, then we have a slight overshoot. And then if you choose relax, you would have no overshoot at all. So this covered a lot of processes, but in many industries, you will have most likely level controller, which are called integrating processes. We call them integrating processes because it will not self-stabilize. So what you have here, and with this will be the simulation. We'll spend a few time on it. It's a level controller, so you're trying to maintain the level in your tank here, and the output is pumped. Okay. So you can choose the speed of the pump, and you have your brine feed, so you have your feed flow, and you can change the disturbance. So right now it's a fixed inflow that you're having here. So what's happening if you increase the speed or decrease the speed of the pump? So in this case, yes.
Can you reshare your screen so they can see the graphs that you're referring to?
So you're not seeing it? Okay, I will try again.
Just one more time. Sorry about that. So
no, I thought
I picked
you
it up
could
in the
see
chat
everything.
pretty quick here. Roger says that he was seeing the graph and then it went away. So let's start it up again. And it might have been a carryover from me.
Maybe. I apologize for that. So let me know what you see. You should see like a processes with a
We're
graph.
good
Okay.
now. Thank you,
All
sir.
right. Let me know if we lose it again.
I will.
All right. Sorry about that. So have you seen the first slide that I was talking about when I did the overview, like this one?
Roger, are you good with this slide?
Okay, so I will not go over. I assume you've seen this one. If not, you're seeing it right
He
now.
said yes.
Okay,
He said
so
yes.
this was the self-regulating. So now we're moving into integrating processes. Okay, so what you have on the right is the simulation that we'll be working with. It's basically a level controller. So you have your tank here. You're trying to maintain a level. There's some inflows coming into your tank, and the outflow is what you're controlling. So you're controlling the speed of the pump. So those processes, what happened is if I change, let's say I'm starting here and this on top is my level. So I see my level was stable. I had a pump speed around 70. And if I lower it to 50, now I'm pumping less out. So what I will see is my level will start rising up. It will, that's what we call integrating. It will accumulate the difference between the inflow and outflow, and it will not self-stabilize until the tank is full. So those are integrating processes, and we'll see how to tune those. So we will try to do what we did in the previous presentation is we'll try to come up with an adapted model of the process. So we'll try to model the response of our process to be able to use this model to do some tuning. So before the self-regulating, the one you see here, we had a process gain. So we said, well, if I move my controller output by 5%, how much more I will get in my PV. So if I gain a 1, if I move 1%, or let's say 10%, I move my control output, I would have a 10% change. Let's gain a 1. But here we cannot get that. So we don't know the process gain because it keeps integrating. So this we'll need to handle this differently. We add the process time constant. So we calculate it at 63.22% of the change. But again, here it's a slope, right? It will never run. So again, we cannot use the process time constant. At that time, we can come up with it. It's we know when we change our output, and we can see the delay we had until we see our process change. Okay, so there's a few things you can see we have to do differently. So I'll show you how we will go about that, and it's to come up with an adapted model using. I'll show you. So that time I said it's pretty easy. Okay, even though it's integrating, I know when I move the time I move my output, and there is a small delay, and then I start seeing the impact on my process. So that time is the same from the moment I change my output to the moment I see another one. So this one is pretty easy, so I can figure out my dead time rather easy. Now, what we'll do is we'll forget the process gain. We'll first start what we call integrating gain. Okay, the integrating gain basically is the slope over the output change. Okay, so when you do that is you go from a stable, like the point of equilibrium where the level is somewhat stable, and you do a step change, same as you would do with a self-regulating. So I did my step change here, and then I can see my process start integrating. So my integrating time is the level change over a set of time. So it's basically the slope. So I can look here. I go from, like, let's say, there's no number here, but we'll do an example. Let's go from 5%, from 3%, and it took me 60 seconds. So I do that based on the CO change here. Once you have your integrating time, you can calculate it when you have your integrating gain, you can do your integrating time, which is 1 over the integrating gain. So we'll do a short example with number here. So what I have here, it's an example, and I put number here. So I see that I did a CO change of 5%. So I have my CO change of 5%, and I'm looking here the time it took me to do a 5% change. Okay, that's another way to look at it. You can say, if I move 5% on my CO, my integrating time will be the time it takes me to reach 5%. Okay, so you can avoid going to the integrating gain and just do that. I move 5% and then I wait to see my PV change by 5% and I calculate the time. That will straight give you your integrating time. But if for some reason it's too slow or you don't want to wait, let's say you do a large CO change for 20% and you don't want your process to change by 20% to disrupt it, then you go with this formula here. Okay, so you do the change of PV over a period of time divided by the CO. It will give you your integrating time, and then you go back to your integrating time. Okay, so it's simple calculation. The one you want is your integral time, and why you want to do that is because we will do what I call the adapted model for a first order. We add formulas to help us calculate the tuning. So before we add process gain, okay, but we know here the process gain we cannot calculate because it does not self-regulate. So we will set it to 1. So this is our kind of adapted model. We say, well, the process gain will be 1. My time constant, which was before that, the time it took to change by 63.2%, I will set it to my integral time. So that's why we calculated previously this integral time. It will replace my process time constant. And the dead time, it's easy. This is the one we first look, is that I move my CO, how much time it takes for my PV to change. Okay, so this is my new adapted model. So process gain 1, I set my time constant to my integral time, and my dead time is my dead time. And with this, you can come up with tuning. Okay, if you were there at the first presentation, I had like aggressive. So when I showed you with an overshoot, kind of Ziegler-Nichols 4-to-1 response, you overshoot, you undershoot, you stabilize, you add like a slight overshoot. With integrating process is a little bit different. So that's why I'm showing you only what we call the aggressive tuning, which is the one we recommend, where you have a strong gain and a lower integral time, and we'll see why. The derivative I showed here, but we don't need it in integrating level. It will we will do some tests. It will not bring really value there.
So Maxim, Roger Henley had 2 questions about the ramp. Can we ask him right now?
Yeah, no problem.
Roger, would you please turn yourself on?
I was just asking if in this process, when you're calculating your dead time there, so I assume you take all of your ramp out of your VFD so that a change in the CV is an instantaneous change in the pump speed, as opposed to a ramp up and pump speed change due to a ramping function on the VFD.
So you're saying like my step changer might not be instantaneous because of a ramp in my VFD. That's what you mean, right?
Yes, which is highly likely. Just about every VFD, the default is some sort of ramps.
Yeah. So I will not take it up because VFD is part of the process response. So when I do my step change, I may not have like instantaneous change like I see here, like a straight break. So I may see it, slowly ramp up and then eventually stabilize. But I would still have like the dead time of the processes, right? So this is when I will be operating it. The ramp will be there, so it's still part of the process. So I would leave it on.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Roger, does that answer your question? Let's go on then. Okay.
Sure.
Yes, that's good. I'm sorry. I'm having to switch between screens here.
Yeah. No, because let's say you do your test with removing the filters and then you add your filter, you try to do your tuning with the model without the filters. It's all part of your process response. Okay. So I'm not talking about VFD here, but of course it will affect your tuning. You don't want a controller that asking to move faster when then that the VFD can handle, right? So then you will have a mismatch with what you're expecting the response to be and the real process response. But in this case, you would still have your deadband regardless of that. You may just not, you will not have like a sharp break like I had. You may have like a small RAM, but you still can estimate the dead time when the pump starts moving. So to do a tuning,
Yes, Bob.
if you, okay. Thank
So
you.
I guess my point was that's something that people need to pay attention to, because the entire tuning process changes if your ramp time changes.
I agree. Yeah. So you don't need to remove it, but don't change it after, of course, because you're right, it will change your response. Same thing with the filtering. So use your filtering first, then you can do those tests because they're part of the process, a bit similar. So when you want to tune a level controller, so you would set your loop in manual, find the point of equilibrium, and then do a step change up and down, and then calculate your adapted model, just like I showed you. So you go through the integrating time, you set the gain to 1, and just like I show you, and with this you can choose your tuning response. We recommend here only one. We'll play with you may have different objective. If you want a strong load rejection, we recommend the aggressive tuning and use 5 times the dead time for your integral time. And then you can test your response and have different. With level, here I will show you how it works, but usually level controller, you're not trying to be that tight. This is usually where we leave the variability of the process. We allow the tanks to fluctuate within a certain range, not to disturb too much the downstream processes. So here we'll look at this tuning example again. This is, as I mentioned before, you have a tank with a level controller that drives this pump speed, and here you're having your inflow, and you can put a disturbance into it. So I will not calculate with you the process, but I will show you what you would do still on the simulation. So I will bring up the simulation here. So the simulation I can play, pause, I can change my tuning, I can play with different things. Okay, so if I let it run, okay, we're at 70%. We're close to being stable. Okay, so what I would do a bump test. Go to 50, let's say, and then see the type of change. And then with this, I would come up and see what was my dead time, calculate my my integral gain, then my integral time, and do my adapted model. Okay, so I calculated it for you. So my integral, my gain was 0.025, give me an integral time of 400 seconds and a dead time of 12 seconds. If I use this and I do my adapted model, I will have a gain of process gain of 1, time constant for 412 seconds. So with this adapted model, I would use these formulas and come up with the tuning. So you see the gain, if you're used to see gain, is pretty strong, 33. My integral time is 1 minute, 60 seconds, and I don't use any derivative time. So I will bring back my my simulation again. So I will go back to 70. 70 is like this, somewhat the stable point. And here, if I click on my tuning, I can change my tuning value. So I put the 33, 1 minute, and then I will see what type of response we have. Oops, I need to put it in automatic. So I put it in automatic, and I will do small set point change. So let's say we go down to 8.4. That was a small, really small change. I will just show you this and pause. Okay. So this is the tuning we came up with, like aggressive gain and an integral of 1 minute. The first thing you may notice is we don't have the same response as we had with the self-regulating. So even though I'm using aggressive gain, I'm not getting the overshoot, undershoot, like the small oscillation of a strong aggressive gain. But I do get an overshoot on my process. Okay, so before with self-regulating, if you were there, the reflex would say, well, oh, if I'm overshooting, it means I have too much gain. Okay, but this is not. I would just I will let it go just to get rid of the previous, just so we see better. I will just get rid because it's self. You'll see it looks better soon. All right. So you see the overshoot. So the reflex, and we'll test it, would be like, oh, well, I will try to cut down my gain, right? So I'll cut down my gain a lot and we'll see the impact that we add. So I will cut my gain. I will go 8.2 and see the type of response. Okay, I'll pause it here. So you can see with integrating processes, when you have low gain, well, your performance is decreased. So you will end up with more overshoot if you use a smaller gain than if you have a strong gain here. Okay, so if I go back, I will go back to my 33 and I will say that, and we'll go back 8.4 and you'll see it will be a bit shorter. See the difference? So longer overshoot, and we took a little bit longer to stabilize than when we're using. So it's better to use a strong gain, basically. That's what I'm saying, than using a smaller gain. You may think, well, can derivative help me? So we'll try derivative. So we'll put a small derivative, 0.05, few seconds of derivative, and we'll continue the simulation. The first thing you will notice is you see the valve movement here. So derivative is very sensitive to noise. Okay, so this process and simulation is already a noise on the level measurement. So right away, the derivative is picking up on this noise, lots of change in direction. So this is not really good already because I'm sensitive to noise. But let's see if the performance is better. Okay, so you see, basically I will say it's about the same. We definitely did not improve our response, and we're sensitive to noise. Okay, so you can see derivative will not help you, so don't use it in your integrating processes. So you can remove the derivative here and just use a PI controller for this one. So now if we want to remove the overshoot, okay, we're overshooting because of the integral. Okay, it's an integrating process, so we're already integrating and we're adding some integral. So if we want to remove the overshoot, we need to remove some integral. So I will remove the integral. And if you were there in the first session, the higher the number, the less integral gain you get. So I will put a large number here, and we will test this. So we'll go back, let's say, to 8. And I can go back to, let's say, 8.2. So surprisingly, you see it's just a P controller and it looks perfect, right? It looks, you can say, wow, why would I need integral, right? It's perfect, no overshoot, I'm pretty fast, and it looks great. The problem with this is you cannot survive with a P only because condition will change. So as soon as there's a disturbance in your system, if you don't have integral, you will not fall back on your feet. So if I put here a disturbance, so I change, I add flow, so I change the equilibrium before, and you can see right now I'm off my set point, okay, because the condition changed, and because I'm not integrating, it's a P only, I will never fall back on my feet. I will always be off, okay? So that's why you need to tolerate this overshoot, and you need to use integrate and integral in your processes. So I will bring it back to 1 minute, and then I will keep my process disturbance here. And you can see now the integral is able to bring me back where I was. Okay, so it's like that. You need to tolerate overshoot. But remember here, all the thing I've been doing are set point change, right? And it's pretty rare that you change your set point in your tank. Usually you say, you know, I try to maintain 50%, and I allow a little bit over, a little bit below, and it will absorb the disturbance getting to your systems. So we'll keep the aggressive tuning, and we'll do the disturbance. So we'll do a disturbance here, and we can see the rejection. Okay, so go back to 16. Okay, that's usually what you will see. Okay, disturbance, go back to normal. Disturbance, go back to normal. What we have here again is the aggressive gain. So we'll see the disturbance rejection if I use a lower gain. So if I go back, so not only in a set point change, a low gain on your controller was not really good. Same thing with the load rejection. Okay, here will not help you at all. So I can go back to 60, and you will see again that your, oops, or I need to go to 25. Is that one? Oh no, it's okay. Okay, so that's the one. So use strong gain, it will help you with set point training, will you with load rejection. Derivative will not help you at all in this type of processes. And unfortunately, there's an overshoot in a set point change, but as I said, not that many set point change in level. You will have a good load rejection here with those tunings. So I will go back here. So a summary, if you want to tune integrating processes, do your adapted model the way I showed you with the simple calculation. Use the formula I showed you. If you add the formula for the self-regulating, just go with aggressive gain and increase your integral time. So with a self-regulating, we were saying for the integral to use 3 times the dead times. Now use 5 times about the dead time, and you will have good response. There will be some overshoot, is the nature of the process. I showed you, like, if you don't add integrating, you can remove the overshoot, but then you're stuck if the process change, and you will not have good performance.
So Maxim, I'm going to ask you some questions out of the chat, and we may have some people join us. Sandeep Singh, if you want to go ahead and unmute. Sandeep asks, for some processes, we can't allow for overshoot due to aggressive tuning. Will you show the parameters for relaxed tuning, or do you have that ready today? You may not have that ready with you.
So there will always be overshoot with integrating process. Okay, so it's not like a self-regulating when you can choose like the relaxed tuning and make sure that it will not be overshoot. You will have overshoot in a set point change in integrating processes. Okay, so even though you try to go extremely slow, you will end up with a small overshoot, and it will just stabilize a bit longer.
Sandeep, can you unmute? Sandeep Singh. Okay, he's not unmuted. So I think you answered his question.
Yeah, as I showed, like if I remove the integral, I will have less overshoot, but then I'm super exposed to process change and disturbance.
Okay, Roger Henley has another question. Roger, can you unmute, please?
I was just asking what the loop simulation software is that you're using.
Okay, so this is this is part of the Loop Pro from Control Station, which is a tuning software. And as part of the tuning software, it comes with case studies here, different case studies that you can play with to test your to test different tunings, or do like I do like academic training here. So we're doing like simple loops. You can do cascading loop. So, oops. Oh, I closed it. It's my bad. I will. I should just have minimized it. I will open it. The process I showed, level and flow, we have that, but normally we would recommend a cascade where the level is driving a flow, because normally there's a process downstream that can be affected with it. So we could recommend a cascading loop here. But you can see a Control Station Loop Pro.
Roger, did you have another question?
No, I was just giving the person who said something about not being able to tolerate overshoot. That's just giving them some ways of mitigating overshoot.
Excellent, excellent. Guys, other questions for Maxime? Maxime, are we at a break point, or you might have another slide or two?
No, I want to comment on the overshoot. Like, we're in a level, we're in a tank, so I'm assuming you're not doing a set point change. And let's say you go from 50 to 60 and you don't want overshoot. I don't really believe that's happening. Usually you have a fixed set point and disturbance will come in. As I said, aggressive gain will minimize the disturbance rejection. And if really you don't want any disturbance, that's where you will use a feed forward. You know that water will be added at a certain time, and then you can offset it with a feed forward on your pump, something like that. But set point change, we don't see that much in tanks at all.
Do I have other questions for Maxime at this point on what we've talked about today on the loop tuning? JD, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, I think he actually covered this pretty good. I mean, and he's right about you're going to have this disturbance in it no matter what you do, even with as much derivatives as you can throw into it. You're going to wind up with a little bit of disturbance one way or the other. I've never seen a process that doesn't have any overshoot. And yeah, I've never seen a process that doesn't have any overshoot. You can minimize it by changing your gain, but you can't really get rid of it.
Charles Timmons asked, could we show the equations for tuning constants again? Can we go back to that slide,
Yeah.
Maxim?
This one here?
Is that the correct
Yep.
slide, Charles, that you want to see? Can you unmute? I'm giving Charles a moment to unmute himself here.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so we will, this presentation will be reside on the ISA On Point site, so you guys can have access to this when it's complete. Charlie says, great presentation. Maxime, time well spent. Are there any other questions for Maxime today? So guys, this is our last On Point and ISA Connect for PMCD for the year. We've had a very, very busy year. We've almost had a connector and On Point every month for the last 11 months. We will be taking December off, and then PMCD has a wonderful team that will be taking over for Sherry and I at the first of the year with several exciting On Points to go forward with you. I'd like to express my extreme gratitude to Maxime Lachance. Maxime, you have come through for us at least twice at PMCD for these On Points and presentations. And guys, Maxime is the best. He serves on the executive board. He puts a lot of time and effort in for ISA, and we are very, very fortunate to have him as a volunteer. So I'd like to give Maxime a hand. Thank you, Maxime, for all your help.
Thank you, Ardis.
We are most grateful. Team, let's continue the conversation on ISA Connect. For those of you who might have some questions later, after you review this presentation again, go to the ISA technical discussion and let's continue the discussion there. As always, that's the place we go to as ISA members. Again, thank you, Maxime. JD, thank you. Dapo, thank you for your help today. And guys, we'll see you next year. Happy Thanksgiving and thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.